Everyone thought the Meghan Markle mystery had already exploded, but now something even stranger is beginning to surface. Because according to royal biographer Tom Bower, the story people have been arguing about for months might only be the surface. The real controversy, the one he says has never fully been exposed, may still be sitting inside a collection of unreleased files from Meghan Markle's early Hollywood years. Files he has hinted exist, files he claims contain timelines, records, and details that don't quite match the version of events the public has been told for years. And suddenly, the question isn't just whether Meghan's story has inconsistencies. The question is, what exactly is hiding in those early Hollywood chapters that nobody has fully examined yet?
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
There's nothing original here.
I hope you're having the best birthday you've ever had. Thank you for everything.
Which is really such a fake.
When she was younger,
Hi, Nanny. I'm English award.
100% a bully brat.
I think when I was 30, if I thought about 50, I thought that is an awful long way away. And I don't really need to think about it. And then I blinked and I'm 50. That's crazy.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
I thought, what is she not contextually aware? She's trying to hide something. This is really sloppy.
She's absolutely ruthless.
This is Meghan's first trip to the snow. Your dad took her up to Big Bear.
I think the palace and the machinery of the monarchy needs to take Harry and Meghan more seriously and make sure that Harry and Meghan's antics don't impact the future of
Meghan is living a life that she's winning and she's doing all these great things, but the reality is not that. The reality is she's a joke.
But what they need to do is face up to the blackmail that's coming from California and in some way or other undermine Harry's and Meghan's credibility.
That was her goal. Hashtag goal, to marry Prince Harry.
She's stuck because she was an actress who became a real princess, who wants to be an actress again, but has to continue to pretend to be a real princess.
There are so many telltale signs that something is clearly wrong with Meghan. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but I mean, how can you get your age so wrong? Did you know that in 1997, when she met Yasmin Bleeth, when she claims that she was working for Humphrey Yogurt, age 13, she also, or somebody with the name Meghan Markle, filled out a questionnaire for Sears, the company, claiming that she was 21 years of age.
For anyone who has followed this saga, Tom Bower is not a casual commentator. He is the kind of biographer who spends years combing through archives, interviewing dozens of sources, digging through old publications and records most people never even realize exist. And when he began investigating Meghan Markle's rise from struggling actress to Duchess of Sussex, he didn't just focus on the royal drama. He went much further back, all the way to the period when Meghan was navigating Hollywood, audition rooms, casting agencies, and the brutal hierarchy of the entertainment industry. Because according to Bower, that early Hollywood chapter is where things start to look unusual. Hollywood in the early 2000s was a ruthless machine. Thousands of hopeful actors competing for the same handful of roles. Careers were built on carefully managed public profiles, polished biographies, and sometimes strategic reinvention. And that is exactly where Bower claims he started noticing something odd while researching Meghan's timeline. The public story is simple. Meghan Markle, born in 1981, graduates from Northwestern University in 2003, moves into acting and slowly works her way up through small roles until she lands the breakthrough role of Rachel Zane on the legal drama Suits in 2011. On paper, it looks neat, clean, logical, but Bower says the deeper he dug, the more the details began to wobble. Old magazine features, casting listings, archived profiles from early talent agencies, and according to him, some of those records don't align perfectly with the narrative people know today. Some of them show slightly different timelines, different ages listed in industry directories, and sometimes strange little gaps. And those gaps are what he keeps hinting about, because Bower has never fully released every document he claims to have uncovered. Instead, in interviews and discussions around his research, he has repeatedly suggested that there are additional files from Meghan's early Hollywood years that he hasn't publicly discussed yet. Files that he says could explain why certain details of her early career appear inconsistent.
I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery and they want to hide their secrets. And I just love digging away to find out what they didn't want.
One of the most talked about discoveries in Bauer's research came from an old magazine archive, a 1997 issue of 17 magazine that listed Meghan Markle's age in a way that sparked immediate confusion among critics who began examining the timeline. If Meghan were born in 1981, she would have been around 15 or 16 at the time of that listing, yet the profile reportedly described her as older. Now, critics argue magazines can make mistakes. Ages can be misprinted, editors can mislabel details, that happens. But Bauer's argument was different. He said the magazine was only one piece of a much larger pattern, because while researching Hollywood archives, he also discovered that early versions of Meghan's professional acting profile reportedly listed a different birth year than the one that later became standard in public biographies. That alone raised eyebrows. But what really fueled speculation were the comments Bauer later made when discussing his research. He suggested that the documents he reviewed during his investigation went far beyond the few examples people have seen. He hinted that there were additional records, talent files, industry submissions, archived listings that he had examined but had not yet fully discussed publicly. And that is where the mystery deepens, because if those unreleased files actually exist, they could potentially reveal how Meghan's Hollywood identity was shaped during the years before she met Prince Harry, the years when she was still fighting for roles, still building a career, still navigating an industry where age, image, and narrative often determine opportunity. Hollywood has always had an unspoken rule. Actors reinvent themselves, ages get adjusted, timelines get polished, biographies become flexible. But if Bauer's hints are accurate, the files he claims to possess might show exactly how that reinvention unfolded. And some observers believe that is precisely why the subject remains so sensitive, because the moment Meghan Markle entered the British royal family, her biography stopped being just a Hollywood resum. It became part of royal history, part of a public narrative watched by millions across the world, which means any inconsistencies suddenly became far more controversial than they would have been inside a casting office.
Is Megsy really lying about her age? Now, when you Google her, it says that she was born on the 4th of August 1981. And with today being her birthday, as of me recording this video, it's saying that she's 44 years old.
According to commentators who have followed Bauer's work closely, he has repeatedly suggested that the early Hollywood chapter of Meghan's life is one of the least understood parts of her story. He believes that many of the details people think they know were constructed through interviews, publicity materials, and industry narratives that may not fully reflect the behind-the-scenes reality of those years. And if those unreleased files ever become public, they might change how that period of her life is understood entirely. It's because those files, according to Bauer, contain timelines, listings, and records that he says deserve closer scrutiny. Records that might answer questions people have been asking for years. Questions about the early acting auditions. Questions about the first talent agencies that represented her. Questions about how her public biography evolved over time. And perhaps most importantly, questions about what exactly was happening during the years before Meghan Markle became a global figure. Because when you step back and examine the story from that perspective, a fascinating pattern begins to emerge. For more than a decade, Meghan Markle was navigating the unpredictable world of Hollywood, taking small roles, building connections, slowly climbing toward recognition. That journey eventually led to Suits, the role that transformed her from a little-known actress into a recognizable television figure. But according to Tom Bauer, the real story of those years might still be sitting inside a set of documents the public hasn't seen yet. Documents he keeps hinting about. Documents he has described as part of a much larger archive from Meghan's early career. And the deeper Tom Bauer looked into those early Hollywood years, the more the puzzle seemed to expand rather than shrink, because the question was no longer just about one magazine listing or one acting profile. The real mystery was about the entire timeline. A timeline that, according to Bauer, contains moments that simply do not line up the way people expect them to. Hollywood in the early 2000s was a world obsessed with image. Casting directors wanted youth, agents wanted marketable stories, studios wanted actors whose biographies could be packaged neatly for publicity. And in that environment, it was not uncommon for aspiring performers to adjust details about themselves. Sometimes it was harmless, sometimes it was strategic, sometimes it was simply part of surviving an industry where perception could decide your entire career. But Bauer claims that Meghan's situation may have gone further than simple Hollywood polishing. According to his investigation, some of the documents he reviewed while researching her early career hinted at something more complicated, a shifting narrative that appeared to evolve depending on where the information appeared. Talent listings, archived entertainment directories, and industry profiles sometimes told slightly different versions of the same story. Individually, those differences might not seem significant, but together, they begin to form a pattern. And that pattern is exactly what Bauer keeps alluding to whenever he mentions the existence of additional files that he has not fully revealed. Because those files, he says, could show exactly how Meghan Markle's early Hollywood identity was constructed, how the story of her beginnings was shaped, refined, and gradually transformed as her career moved forward. The strange thing is that the closer people look at those years, the more questions begin to appear. For example, there are long stretches of time during Meghan's early acting career where very little is publicly documented. Small auditions, minor background roles, temporary projects that never gained attention. The kind of work that thousands of struggling actors pass through every year without leaving much of a trace. But Bauer believes some of those periods may contain more activity than people realize. They rarely become public. But if Bauer actually obtained access to portions of those records during his research, they could potentially show how Meghan was presented to casting directors before she became widely known. What age was listed in those submissions? What biography accompanied her casting profiles? What personal details were emphasized and which ones were quietly ignored? Those are the questions people are beginning to ask as the speculation around Bauer's unreleased files continues to grow. Because once Meghan Markle entered the British royal family, the stakes changed dramatically. Before meeting Prince Harry, she was simply another actress trying to build a career. Her biography was a professional tool, something shaped by publicists and agents to help her land roles. But after becoming the Duchess of Sussex, every part of that biography suddenly became a subject of global scrutiny. Every timeline, every date, every chapter of her past. And that is why Bauer's hints about unreleased documents have created such intense curiosity. Because if those files actually exist, they could reveal how the story of Meghan Markle's rise was constructed long before the royal spotlight ever arrived. Observers of the royal drama have noticed something else as well. Whenever the topic of her early Hollywood years resurfaces, Meghan herself rarely addresses it directly. The focus usually shifts toward her humanitarian work, her television success with Suits, or her life after joining the royal family. The earlier period, the auditions, the networking, the long climb through Hollywood often remains vague, and that silence has only fueled the curiosity surrounding Bauer's investigation. Because according to people familiar with his work, Bauer is not the type of biographer who casually mentions documents he does not intend to use. When he hints that additional files exist, many assume that those files contain information he believes is significant, information that could potentially reshape how Meghan Markle's early career is understood. Of course, none of this proves anything on its own. Hollywood archives are messy. Records are incomplete. Biographies evolve as careers grow. Any actor who spends years navigating auditions and temporary roles will inevitably leave behind a complicated paper trail. But that is exactly why the mystery refuses to disappear. Because if the timeline is truly as straightforward as the public story suggests, there would be nothing controversial hiding inside those early Hollywood records. No unexplained gaps. No conflicting details. No reason for investigators like Tom Bauer to keep talking about unreleased files, yet he does. Again and again. And that persistent hint that somewhere inside his research archive there are documents the public has not seen is what keeps this entire controversy alive. Because until those files are either released or dismissed, the speculation will continue. Was Meghan Markle simply another ambitious actress navigating the harsh realities of Hollywood? Or was there a more carefully constructed narrative shaping the way her story was presented to the world? Tom Bauer believes the answer may already exist in those files that remain out of public view files that he says could explain why certain parts of Meghan Markle's early Hollywood journey still don't quite add up. And until those documents are finally revealed, if they ever are, the questions surrounding her rise from aspiring actress to global royal figure will continue to echo through both Hollywood and the royal world alike. Because sometimes the most revealing chapters of a story are the ones that were never meant to be opened in the first place.